We continue with our discussion on leadership, and we are drawing lessons from the book of 1 Samuel. We will be helped to revise to begin with, I think let's ask Elisha to help us to remember what we covered last week. Is this Elisha? Elisha, are you able to remind us?
Yes, I'm able to remind you.
Okay.
Last week we learned about the platinum rule. A leader must love and be fair even to his enemies. The lead verse was from 1 Samuel 24. And what I took from last session is sin against your enemy is still a sin. And also you cannot make two wrongs does not make it right.
Thank you very much. Let's ask Evelyn to add.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. What really stood out for me was the first point that says that the enemy is not just against your small self, but the great one who or that is inside you. And the reason why I picked this is because many times when we find that we have attacks against us, we usually think about maybe the physical realm, but I do believe that there's a spiritual realm that's behind it, and the devil actually is the one who's really attacking us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mary Wamboy?
Okay, for me, what I remember and what I learned is that love and care is the solution for any enmity. Like, that should be the key at all times.
Thank you very much. Today, we continue with our discussion, and we want to cover the whole issue about mediation. How to be a leader who is not constantly fighting with others. Because that is a very, very important issue we need to deal with. William, can you hear me clearly?
Very clear.
Okay, so I can go on, and you are projecting for me. So a leader must choose mediation rather than constant fighting. There are leaders who are fighting one person or another continuously. Every week, there's somebody they are fighting with. Through David, we learn that that's not a good issue. You need to find a way of mediation so that you can come to agreement if there is somebody who has done something or is saying something you don't agree with. Let's look at 1 Samuel chapter 25, verse 1. Now Samuel died, and all Israel assembled and mourned for him, and they buried him at his home in Ramah. Then David moved down into the desert of Paran. If you really want to be at peace, it's important to have an advisor, somebody old and wise. And that's what David had in Samuel. Samuel not only appointed him, but prayed for him. But he was an old man. So it's important to have advisors, but I only encourage you to have one advisor, somebody who can help to bring your nerves down so that you don't fight everybody. But it's better to have more than one. Because if David had only Samuel, now you can see he finally dies. What happens to you? So have more than one advisor, but even more important, have God as your chief advisor, because God will be with you all the years of your leadership, all the years of your life. In verse 2 we read, a certain man in Maon who had property there at Carmel was very wealthy. He had 1,000 goats and 3,000 sheep, which he was shearing in Carmel. His name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. She was an intelligent and beautiful woman, but her husband was surly and mean in his dealings. He was a Calebite. Wow. We are introduced to a person who is going to have problems with David. And we are told he is a fool. He is very wealthy, but a fool. A very important lesson to learn. Do not always be attracted to people because they have wealth. Some of them are wealthy, but foolish. But fortunately for him, he had a wife. And in the trouble we are going to read about, the solution came from an intelligent wife. Teaching us, if you want to be at peace, you need a spouse who is not going to put more firewood to the fire, and so cause you to fight everybody. But the kind of a person who is wise enough to help you not to fight. A leader needs an intelligent wife or an intelligent husband, if the leader is a woman, so that he can complement. Complement means where he is weak, she will be strong or he will be strong. That way, you are likely to have a peaceful relationship, a peaceful leadership. Let's go on to see this story as it develops. In verse 4, while David was in the wilderness, he heard that Nabal was shearing sheep. So he sent 10 young men and said to them, "Go up to Nabal at Carmel and greet him in my name. Say to him, 'Long life to you, good health to you and your household, and good health to all that is yours. Now, I hear that it is sheep shearing time. Then your shepherds were with us. When your shepherds were with us, we did not mistreat them. And the whole time they were at Carmel, nothing of theirs was missing. Ask your own servants, and they will tell you. Therefore, be favorable towards my men, since we come at a festival time. Please give your servants and your son, David, whatever you can find for them." This is the beginning of the conflict. David, as a good man, had protected the sheep of Nabal out in the wilderness so that they were not molested by bandits. And he expected that this man would be grateful. So at a time of festive time, you share whatever he is celebrating with him. But that's now the beginning of trouble. If you really want peace, state your expectations before doing any work. That way you avoid misunderstanding later. If somebody gives you a work, ask him, "What will you pay me?" If you intend to give somebody work, tell him up front, "I'm only going to pay you 300 shillings. Then the person can say, "At that price, I do not intend to work for you." That way, you'll part company without fighting. I had a grandfather in the 1960s and by that time he was an old man, he was already over 70. He would be asked by somebody to sell sheep to me, and he would give a high price. The other person says, no, that's too high. He says, do you have my sheep? No. Do I have your money? No. Then let's part peacefully. And of course they will part peacefully. But if you take his sheep and then you don't pay, a big fight is going to develop. Learn early to state your expectation before doing any work. And that way you will be at peace with many people. Many leaders just use people without telling them what is in it for them. And then in the end, the people feel like they were molested, they were manipulated, they were exploited. But the leader did not expect to pay anything at any time. But the person doing the work expected he was going to get something out of it. And so you end up in this relationship that with people very, very unhappy with the leader. But it's just because he does not state upfront what are our expectations and what are them going to be any payment, if any. Look at verse 9. When David's men arrived, they gave Nabal this message in David's name. Then they waited. So they have finally reached Nabal. He is busy celebrating and shearing the sheep. Everybody's happy. So they give him the message. What is his reply? Very rude. Nabal answered David's servants, "Who is this David? Who is this son of Jesse? Many servants are breaking away from their masters these days. Why should I take my bread and water and the meat I have slaughtered for my shearers and give it to men coming from who knows where?" Wow. You know, we were introduced to Nabal as somebody foolish. And I think obviously we now know he is pretty foolish. He is dealing with a man who has an army of 600 people. He is no match for him. Yet he is being rude to the person. He does not even want to know from his servants the relationship there is. Do you understand that a good word will keep away wrath, while a bad one will start a war? Remember, our topic today is a leader who is able to live at peace with others through mediation rather than confrontation and fighting. If you only reply to people the right way, you'll avert a war. We know a similar story when Solomon's son was advised by the young men to be rude to the people of Israel. What was the result? 10 of the tribes of Israel left his kingdom. That's how the northern kingdom, bigger than the southern kingdom, was finally formed, simply by words. And if you are not wise, and you are always confrontational, saying rude things to people, your leadership will suffer constantly. Let me repeat, a good word will keep away wrath, while a bad one will even start a war, with many people dying in the process. But worst of all, you as a leader will have now to move from the leading on the task you intended to. Now your time will be taken away to where you are now fighting instead of doing what you started the group to do. It's a very, very important thing to be aware of. Verse 12. David's men turned around and went back. When they arrived, they reported every word. David said to his men, "Each of you strap on your sword." So they did. And David strapped his own sword, his own as well. About 400 men went up with David, while 200 stayed with supplies. War has broken because of the rudeness of foolish Nabal. But David is also not being wise. He is so hurt by the rudeness of this man that in the process he is going to shed blood, innocent blood. Because not only is Nabal going to die, his people will die. That's why he's carrying a whole 400 people. Please understand, as a leader, even if somebody insults you, don't react in anger. Allow your emotions to calm down and make a decision so that you don't end up making a bad situation even worse. Please be aware, hurt feelings will make you do things which you regret later. That's what was about to happen for David. What about you? Can you remember a time when you acted out of anger, and in the process, there's a friendship that died permanently? And you know, if only you had acted differently, you'd have been able to sort out the matter. I think as a leader, you need to understand these principles which David learned at an early age. Verse 14. One of the servants told Abigail, Nabal's wife, "David sent messengers from the wilderness to give our master his greetings, but he hurled insults at them. Yet these men were very good to us. They did not mistreat us, and the whole time we were out in the fields near them, nothing was missing. Night and day, they were a war around us, the whole time we were herding our sheep near them. Now think it over and see what you can do, because disaster is hanging over our master and his whole household. He is such a wicked man that no one can talk to him. You know, this problem of somebody who cannot be advised is not just with the foolish people. It's with any proud person. You become a leader and you assume because you are a leader, you know better than everybody else. So whenever junior people try to give you some advice, you dismiss it. Who are you to advise me? Who appointed you my advisor? And yet wisdom is not only in leaders. Wisdom is distributed across. You will find the house girl in your house knowing something your father cannot know. You will find the watchman at the gate knowing something the CEO does not even know. That's what this Nabal did not know. And if you really want to live at peace, respect everybody, and they will give you advice that will help you not to end up in war and fighting continuously. Please respect the brains of even the lowest of your servants, and you are likely to have a leadership that will be at peace. First of all, they are the people who see things, and they can tell you even when somebody is planning to destroy you, because he will speak carelessly, because he is not even aware they are listening. If you go to the story of Esther, you know that Mordecai was a Jew who stayed at the gate. And because they were ignoring him, he had a story of some two leaders planning to kill the king. It is that story that ended up making Mordecai the prime minister of Persia. You need to understand that anybody who thinks that wisdom is a reserve of top management is not a very wise person. You need to create a system that allows information to flow up, down, down, up, and across. That way your decisions will be better advised and there will be less infighting within your leadership. Look at verse 18. Abigail acted quickly. What a wise woman. She took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 dressed sheep, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 cakes of raisins, and 200 cakes of pressed figs, and loaded them on donkeys. Then she told her servants, "Go on ahead, I'll follow." But she did not tell her husband, Nabal. She can see clearly from the story she has been told. Death for all of them is about to come. She did not wait to negotiate with her husband. She took a few people, she took the gifts, and ran towards where David was coming from, so that he can meet him far away before disaster happens. That is wisdom. My friend, if pride stops you from reacting on time, the small problem you are currently dealing with will become a gigantic problem. In fighting fires, they normally say a fire extinguisher, one fire extinguisher, can distinguish a fire that would have destroyed a whole estate. Because the fire extinguisher is very effective on a small fire. But if you start negotiating, do I do it? This is a junior job. Why should I be doing it? The fire will become so big. And at that time, the fire extinguisher is useless to a big fire. You have to call the fire brigade. And by that time, several buildings are totally destroyed. Timely action is the way to go if you really want a leadership that will have peace between you and others, and between staff and the management, and all leaders together. Learn not to allow your pride to delay an action that could avert disaster. Abigail was a wise woman. Go to verse 20. As she came riding her donkey into a mountain ravine, there were David and his men descending toward her, and she met them. David had just said, it's been useless. All my watching over these fellows' property in the wilderness, so that nothing of his was missing. He has paid me back, evil for good. May God deal with David, be it ever so severely, if by morning I leave alive one male of all who belong to him. Now David is annoyed. He's boiling. And his intention is to go and destroy everybody, not just Naboth. All of them. My friend, like we saw a little earlier, you have to be very careful about acting out of emotion. You know, once you have been hurt, your passion will make you do good or bad things. So I'm saying passion to do good, or even passion to do evil, will give you speed. You will go at a very high speed. That's why it's important for any leader to be passionate about what they are doing. But that they can be passionate about good things. They can be passionate about doing good. David was now passionate, but passionate in doing something that is evil. What about you? Are you the kind of a person who has no passion in your leadership? There is nothing you feel is important enough for you to put your passion in. It slows your speed of action, even if your intentions are good. So, it's always important to consider what to have passion about. Because once you have passion, you are likely to achieve whatever you put yourself to do. If it's an evil thing, you are likely to do it. And for David, this evil, he really was about to do it. But he meets this wise lady. Hear her. Verse 23. When Abigail saw David, she quickly got off her donkey and bowed down before David with her face to the ground. She fell to his feet and said, "Pardon your servant, my lord, and let me speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say. Please pay no attention, my lord, to that wicked man Naboth. He is just like his name. His name means fool, and folly goes with him. And as for me, your servants, I did not see the men my Lord sent. And now, my Lord, as surely as the Lord your God lives, and as you live, since the Lord has kept you from bloodshed and from even avenging yourself with your own hands, may your enemies and all who are intent of harming my Lord be like Naboth. And let this gift which your servant has brought to my Lord be given to the men who follow you." That's now what you call mediation. There's a fight between a husband and David that's going to kill many people. She comes in, and you can see, she starts by saying, "Pardon your servant." She's calling herself a servant. "Pardon my servant, my Lord. Let me speak to you. Hear what your servant has to say." You need to find a way of, even if you are meeting the hottest person, instead of ending up in a fight, try to cool him. Come in between two people that are fighting. But how do you do it? But first of all, making the annoyed guy to know you understand his anger. And then tell him, understand clearly, that guy annoyed you. In other words, my husband is a fool. You have a right to do what you are planning to do. What he did was very wrong. However, please have mercy. Why? You are dealing with a fool. Why act like a fool? People not tell the difference we see written in offices. So he says, "Now, my Lord, as surely as the Lord lives." So she is calling on God's name and pointing out, would God really want you to kill? Would God want you to avenge for yourself? Can't you allow God to avenge for you? You know, there are people also who want to harm you. But you know, God is the one who can stop them from harming you. Please accept this gift. So you can see there's an approach in mediation. You first of all show that you agree with the annoyed guy. Number two, you show that for sure he has a right to do what he is doing. Then show him if he does it, it will not just hurt the other person, it will also hurt him. then give him an alternative way of acting. In mediation, it is important to first of all recognize evil that the person has been done. Don't make him think he's a fool, and yet he's the one who has been hurt. But after doing that, go ahead and appeal for mercy. By the time she finished talking, things were different. Look at verse 28. Please forgive your servant's presumption. She is saying, I know I have no right to be talking to you the way I'm talking, but please listen to me. The Lord your God will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my Lord, because you fight the Lord's battles, and no wrongdoing will be found in you as long as you live. In other words, I know you. You have been a godly man, a godly leader. Of course, that will make David think, so she sees one day I'll be the king. Yes. 29. Even though someone is pursuing you to take your life, the life of my Lord will be bound securely in the bundle of the living by the Lord your God. But the lives of your enemies will be held away as from the pocket of a sling. In other words, David, it's not you who protect yourself. It's not you who avenges yourself. Your life is bound in God, and it will be protected, not by you, but by God. Verse 30. When the Lord has fulfilled for my Lord every good thing he promised concerning him and has appointed him ruler over Israel, my Lord will not have on his conscience the staggering burden of needless bloodshed or of having avenged himself. In other words, if you go ahead and kill in cold blood this family, even when you become king, it will always be on your head as a guilt. And when the Lord your God has brought my Lord success, remember your servant. I know you're becoming king. Remember me. What an argument. If you really want to bring mediation and allow people not to fight, you must give a rationale for why you are requesting for mercy. And that rationale, we can see, is so well argued that David had no alternative than to accept it. Look at verse 32. David said to Abigail, praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you today to meet me. You know what he is saying? I'm not going to fight. Verse 35, David accepted from her hand what she had brought to him and said, go home in peace. I've heard your words and granted your request. You know, he listened. It was just a woman, but he listened. But he realized it was not the woman talking. It was God. Listen to David again. Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who has sent you. In other words, this woman has not just come because of her wisdom. It is God who sympathized with David about to do a sin and therefore send a guy. Now, if you are a leader, it will be important that you listen to people, to go beyond their words, to verify. Might God have sent them? If you ignore them, might you be ignoring God? And that will bring you coolness so that you come out of the fight. Beyond people's words, hear the voice of God and obey it. But this fool of a man called Naboth, when she goes back, he is actually drunk. He was holding a banquet like that of a king. In verse 36, he was a high spirit and very drunk. Now, you know, the thing you need to understand is, if you are a fool and you drink, alcohol will make a foolish man even more foolish. If you want to be a leader, one thing you must avoid is alcoholic drinks. You always start a little, just for party. Within no time, you are taking more, and you end up acting more foolish than you are foolish. Do you want war? Start drinking, and you'll be a leader who will always be fighting with the people. Verse 39 saying, when David heard that Nabal was dead, because actually David, once Nabal was told what had happened, when he became normal, he was no longer drunk, he was in shock, traumatized, and actually died. When David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, praise be to the Lord, who has upheld my cause against Nabal for treating me with contempt. He has kept me, his servant, from doing wrong, and has brought Nabal wrongdoing down on his head. In other words, David recognized that God is able to revenge. God does take over your revenge if you allow him. But he doesn't do it at your time. He does it at his timing. So why fight back? Why don't you allow the Lord to avenge you? He says, vengeance is mine, says the Lord. A lot of fightings you are carrying is because somebody hurt you. Why not allow the Lord to handle him? So as we finish, remember this woman. This woman finally becomes the wife of David. She bowed down with her face to the ground. I'm your servant, and I'm ready to serve you and wash your feet from my Lord's servant. You need to understand that intelligence made her so attractive that the day David heard she is a widow, he sent for her. My friend, how handsome you are or how beautiful you are will look ugly when you act without wisdom. Intelligence will make you more attractive than your physical beauty, and it will make it easier for people to deal with you and to want to work with you. May the Lord give us this wisdom so that we truly can lead in peace rather than continuous infighting. Thank you very much. William, take over the meeting.